I hope I'm live now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mark Tech in a very untypical video for me. Something that likely is going to skew towards more being ranty and unhinged. Hopefully for entertainment purposes. Hopefully not for my mental health. So this is a stream I really didn't know I was going to make, and this is a stream even when the news came out I didn't know I was going to make, because quite honestly thus far, like, I've been pretty open about my thoughts about Elon Musk on Twitter or on X. No, I'm not going to use that anymore. So on Twitter, but here on YouTube I do have an Apple focused channel. From time to time I do like streams that are about like latest game announcements. I am gonna move away now from OBS because that is incredibly distracting, seeing myself 5 times on screen. But usually I don't want to cover a lot of non-Apple stuff here, and even in things that I covered that were somewhat controversial or ranty, like my streams about Linus Tech Tips, certain moves they've pulled. I see we have the first viewer joining. Hello. You can always ask questions. I think this time around I might not really get to being very responsive unless I find something really interesting in the chat. I did kind of boof it, and I made the stream announcement on Twitter way too late. Let's see how many of you join me. I have seen tremendous support from you afterwards. Watching my videos is basically on demand and not live. I'm perfectly fine with that, and whenever we will have individual streams where we are totally connected and we have like 10-20 people here, hopefully at some point more, I obviously appreciate that most, but I am just happy with all the kinds of support you are giving me. We have gained a few more subscribers. We have now a lot more views for every video, so no video like comes now below 100 views or something like that, which is very nice to see. I'm not making this video for clout. This video ain't gonna make me rich. It's not gonna get me another 400 subs so that I couldn't get to monetization. Given that I have a lot of like nerdy tech guys as my subscribers, which I am myself, I kind of expect some of you to maybe leave this channel or stop being my followers on Twitter, or stop being my Xers, or whatever it's going to be called now. But the point why I'm making this is a very important topic for technology in general, for social networking in general, and YouTube by itself is a social network, so covering other social networks here is important, it's relevant. I'm not covering the likes of TikTok because those are completely unimportant to me. I will cover Facebook once there is something interesting to talk about, but since I don't really use it, I didn't care for the meta rebranding or anything. Plus this like predates my regular live stream days. So that leaves pretty much Twitter. Now, yes, there are the likes of Threads and Instagram, but they range from not being important to not being relevant to me personal, and certainly not really for YouTube, unless there's like some catastrophe regarding a content creator, but there are other people who focus on that. This is very much a technology question because Elon Musk is the self-proclaimed tech king of Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company, and I don't even remember how the other companies are structured, if they're all still like combined, like is the Boring Company doing the loop stuff or whatever. My opinions on Musk are somewhat complicated, but also not so. My opinions on his companies are actually pretty positive for the most part, so I did want to cover that as an intro, basically, before we get to like the juicy Twitter becomes X stuff. X kills Twitter, Musk kills Twitter. The point is, I like Tesla's cars Some of them actually, the Model S and Model X, are now outdated pieces of garbage that have a lot of performance, but everything else pretty much sucks. Like, you buy cars for like $120,000, you don't even get like massage seats, and even in those cars at that price range, they're like removing essential sensors like ultrasonic. I will never understand that. I will not understand it, even like the Model 3 and Model Y, which at least are well-constructed vehicles that are thankfully pushing electrification to the vehicle market overall. However, I have no idea why my stream isn't going live. This is the same problem that I've had like last time. Okay, now it's working. I have no idea. Like, YouTube seems to not do the video automatically. Yeah, if any of you has the problem, if you join me before the stream starts and then you don't see the actual video starting, try refreshing it. I've heard that now from a couple of people. Okay, right now we don't have people waiting, but I've heard that it is a problem. That's apparently how YouTube Mobile has problems with that. Regardless, so I do like a lot about the Tesla vehicles. I wouldn't personally buy one anymore now that there are, in my opinion, better alternatives out there. Then SpaceX, I really admire SpaceX. I do believe that SpaceX should be a government company, given that it's pretty much 100% government funded, because it either gets support from the government, or most of the tasks that it does are then paid for by the government. So while it has like private investors, it's not a publicly traded company, but it does have its private investors. Those investors might as well not exist, because without the government, the business doesn't exist. So, and given the historical successes of NASA and other government space agencies, I always maintain that it's much better to just pay a much better wage and allow for a lot more personal patents and stuff like that for engineers that work at NASA, work at other government space agencies around the world, and not give that to a private company. I'm very socialist that way, if you want to call it that. And I mean, it got the US to the freaking moon, and yes, SpaceX is doing a lot of great stuff with like reusable rockets, but even then, like, all the people basically working there are people who previously worked at NASA and might as well have continued to work at NASA if a combination of neoliberal policies wouldn't have resulted in the government largely defunding government-led projects, while then subsidizing private companies basically from the ground up. So we have basically socialized losses for those private companies, but then completely capitalized and privatized profits once they actually start making money. Incredibly fair. Once again, every successful business that Musk has ever run has largely relied on government incentives. That is also true for a bunch of other companies, and I'm not anti-government like Musk is, so I'm perfectly fine with him doing so, but he's super hypocritical about it. He always talks about like how he's anti-taxes and shit like that, but then again, without taxes, most of his companies wouldn't exist. Without governments being super interventionist, his company wouldn't exist, because for years Tesla's only free cash flow was basically carbon credits that they were selling to other companies. So again, mixed impression of Tesla as a company, because I like a lot of the foundations. I don't like a lot of the current implementations. A lot of respect for SpaceX, but not much of that respect going towards Musk, and then basically hating everything else that is a result of his more recent egomania, like the idea of building single lane tunnels that are Tesla somehow exclusive. Complete and utter garbage that only a city like Las Vegas would think of ever funding. And then they like work on like 69 tunnels, because God forbid Musk does something that doesn't have the number 69 or 420 in the name. And yeah, then he does like flamethrowers and shit, and that isn't interesting to me. Oh, again, also like SpaceX, something that I want to cover positively, which is that it's that one aspect that isn't completely reliant on government services. It's Starlink, and while I do believe that Starlink is completely mismarketed because it's trying to appeal to like tech enthusiasts who don't really need it in their areas, and while completely falling short of actually supplying it to people who really need it. Granted, it's a private company in a highly late-stage capitalist society. I understand why they will focus on the more profitable North American or European market versus covering areas like South America, Africa, that actually need a lot of that support. Even like wider parts of Asia, like Russia, for example, is super big, but then again, any kind of businesses with Russia are now controversial too, for understandable reason. By the way, I'm not saying there should be a lot of business going with Russia. Maybe I should do like a political channel at some point. So this was basically a long-winded way of saying it's not that I hate that everything that Musk does, but I hate basically everything that he has done and said recently, and everything that he is saying is getting worse and worse and more self-absorbed. Like, you just have to think, like, what did we have recently? We had him like debating whether or not he should go to an actual fight with Mark Zuckerberg, and then he saw how fucking ripped Zuckerberg got, and then got like super scared. Like let us just get like Mark Zuckerberg trained. Like, there should be like an image of him. Well, here is him training, yes, but like there was one without a shirt there, and he looked awesome. Mark Zuckerberg trained shirtless. That's okay too. Yeah, look, do you think that Elon Musk is now gonna fight him now that he looks like that? Hell no. Like, sorry, Musk lost a little weight recently. He ain't gonna fight Zuckerberg now anymore. So that's a somewhat long-winded way of saying that Musk is full of shit. He is a right-winger. I'm not a right-winger, and I'm not somebody who excuses people for being like ultra right-wing and being like super neoliberal. I understand that everybody has like different opinions. However, if you are a multi-billionaire who got like extremely lucky throughout his life, from being born into privilege to getting lucky with a few companies, even when those companies ended up hating you, like PayPal, to then also like deserving some praise for like doing a lot of good work in companies like Tesla. I think your job to then is to become somewhat humble and be grateful for what you have and encourage other people to do the same. Instead, Musk became like an edgy 13-year-old like troll on Twitter, even before buying Twitter. Then he decided to buy Twitter, and long story short, to my introduction, we are now out of the long-winded intro. I got my energy, and now Twitter is dead as Twitter. Twitter is being rebranded as X. That being said, it hasn't quite happened in my region, so I really cannot tell you how long it will take before we will actually see that being like a worldwide change. What kind of thing will they do to like regions where maybe there are some X called companies or something like that? I don't know. Like, Musk owns X.com, and since then he has been obsessed with doing that. Even in his PayPal days, there were like thoughts of him like rebranding everything into X. So why X? XY. I'm so funny. Oh god, this is so stupid. So basically, he's taking Twitter, he's rebranding it as X. Now, it should be mentioned that the reason why he's rebranding Twitter as X and not Tesla, for example, is because Twitter by itself is a large international brand that is like very software focused. If he could, he would have made like the Tesla app into X. By the way, I don't think that the board of directors would have allowed him that. But on Twitter, he's basically king, so he's rebranding Twitter as X. And what does that mean? Well, fundamentally, he wants to do one thing, which is he wants Twitter to be everything. He wants Twitter to be a messaging service, like the kind of microblogging thing it currently is. Whether that's actually a priority, we don't know, but I assume that functionality would still stay because Musk is a troll, loves that functionality. And it would be like an audio social network site, something he sort of started with Twitter Spaces, which are like technologically inferior to any social network out there. Like the thing I'm doing here on YouTube in like 1080p 60 fps quality while streaming, and then immediately it becomes like 4K 60. YouTube cannot even like, and this works for us where there may be like 10-15 people watching for now, but they're obviously much larger streams. And then there's Twitch, which has like a bunch of huge live streams going on at once. Twitter couldn't handle an audio release for when Ron DeSantis wanted to launch his campaign for president. Like, just so you can understand, like, Musk is trying to get Twitter as X into X, but he still couldn't even get like Twitter Spaces right, which I assume will now be like X Spaces, which sounds like a porn site streaming. I have no idea how you have no idea how stupid all of this is to me. And the next, of course, it would also encompass videos. Now, he recently started sharing money with creators. Creators can obviously ask for monetization once they have enough impressions. But then again, the money pool that he offers to it is not quite clear. There's also seemingly like no real group that oversees it currently, so for now it looks like Musk is just giving out money to right-wing bloggers who are kissing his ass on Twitter. That to me is like, it's understandable given what Musk has become. I mean, he was born as an influential white man into South Africa who never learned the lessons of apartheid, and basically is still going on, and how about like men are more oppressed apparently, and how everybody is against him because he suddenly he said that he used to be like leftist, but now he is right wing, yet we don't have a single proof that he ever was like somewhat left. Then he explained it, saying that basically the political landscape shifted, so where he was like center left, or maybe like mostly center right, is now like super right wing because the whole society has moved super left. That is a complete and entire lie. It's super ahistorical. Yes, we do have more far left people, but the actual far left is still what it once was. It's still, with all its flaws, still way better than anything that Musk has to offer. And again, I am center leftist. I don't agree with the super far left, but I do agree with them way more than I do with the super far right. That's where you can basically, plus I'm economically pretty leftist, if you want to say it that way. So, sorry again for the rant. So, let us calm down a little, and with that I say, let me calm down a little. So, he has done a lot of things with Twitter, like bringing back people that should be still banned. Like, let's even forget like Trump, which is a very different discussion because Trump was the president and maybe he should be on there for like relevant conversations. I don't think so. It's still a private platform that I do think should have high standards for who engages with the platform. After January 6th, I don't believe there's any justification for Trump going back to any social media site. That being said, the people that got back there and are spewing extremely hateful garbage, the amount of spams, by the way, like Musk originally complained that spamming was a big problem and that's why he didn't want like buy Twitter, because the percentage of bots was higher than Twitter let him know when he was negotiating. Well, guess what? There are now apparently more bots, and there is more freaking porn and disgusting shit on that platform, which, like, I am pro free expression, but please, not everything on every platform. They're like adult platforms. You can go on freaking 4chan, which is, or 8chan, or whatever is still open, and discuss your far-right views. But Twitter should have a moderate amount of moderation that isn't there at all right now, in my opinion. If anything, like, the way that Musk went against journalists that are clearly not on his political side suggests that there is a lot of like going against leftists or even like centrists who try to hold him accountable, which that's you don't have a legitimacy to do that if it's not in your terms of service. Like, this is still a private company which does have a pseudo agreement with its consumers. The idea that Musk is doing whatever he wants goes against the very idea of Twitter. It's, you can post anything and then you can engage in a discussion, and if the tweet was completely out of line, the tweet gets taken out, and if you post a lot of that stuff, then your account gets suspended. That's completely reasonable. The things that Musk have done, and we will get to a bigger timeline, is so antithetical to everything that Twitter was that maybe he should be rebranding it. But the reason why he's rebranding it is complete garbage. So we've talked about Twitter being like a microblogging and messaging site. Again, the messaging side of Twitter is completely bad. It's not in any way competitive to Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, iMessage. To be honest, even like plain SMS and like RCS. And then audio, we have covered that he's failed at delivering a comparable audio streaming experience to high quality video experience. So there are websites that are doing high quality video streaming better than Twitter handles audio. And then the video on the platform is like garbage quality. I don't know what you get if you are Twitter Blue. I will never understand how anybody pays actual money for Twitter Blue. And again, Twitter Blue under him also got more expensive. It got completely rid of, and by the way, there is still some stuff about like, oh, like we have given Twitter Blue to like some legacy verified accounts. Yeah, but now you cannot hold them apart to other accounts, because people also want to vote basically with their wallets, quote unquote, against people who got Twitter Blue. But for example, I follow a guy like Hassan Abi, and he has Twitter Blue even though he never paid a cent for it, because he was previously a verified account. But now it looks as if he's a freaking paying member, and you have to go to like all the small stuff, like the grayed out stuff, where you have to see if it's like a legacy account or anything else like that. Parody accounts were like supposed to be like, oh, you need to like clearly label them as parody so that they can be like verified. Why is there any verification for parody accounts, which could mislead people? But also, even without like labeling them as even if you say they should have some form of verification, there are a ton of parody accounts on Twitter that aren't clearly labeled as parody and still got verification somehow, making the entire system completely useless. And I'm so sorry I'm now 20 minutes on this screen, but let me make my final point, and this is going to be actually important for the website I have open before we get to a broader timeline, is so we do have messaging microblogging, we do have audio, we do have video. That's for you, Musk, I'm sorry. And then we obviously have financial services and basically an all-around your life management. and that is basically WeChat. Now, WeChat in China does basically what individual services or system-based services do for us in the West. We have Apple and Google Play. We have integrated messaging apps that either do have iMessage or have RCS on Android. And then, of course, we use a ton of third-party functionality for everything from managing any kind of bank to external third-party messengers that are, in most cases, more popular than iMessage or the integrated Android messenger. So, but in China, you can pay with WeChat, sort of like how we would do with Apple Pay or Google Pay. You chat through it, obviously, as the name suggests, and you consume even content through it, and it's basically a one-for-all app. And the reason why it exists is China calls themselves communist. They are not, but okay. And part of that is having a lot of control over your people. Ideally not to Marxist beliefs, but we will not be getting into that discussion today. But a communist dictatorship like China will have an app that tries to control as much of a people's life as possible. And China happens to not have a popular operating system of their own with baked-in services. Android comes from Google, iOS comes from Apple, and even if you do things like highly customize Android through a Chinese vendor, first of all, you still have the likes of Samsung being very successful, and second, there's also the question, how far does the license of Android actually go? How much can you actually customize it without losing any extra services? Again, in China you also have alternatives for that. That's why Huawei survives in China while it pretty much is dead in the West. It's a very complicated discussion, and Musk is trying to basically replicate that. He wants to have a chat app, he wants to have a social media app, he wants to have a video and audio consumption app, again, also something like podcasts, basically, right? Or imagine my stream basically being a podcast or anything like that. And of course, he wants you to potentially pay through it, which again would be the question: do you do it then with barcodes because it's like not NFC integrated, or at least on iOS? So again, it's complicated, but that's basically what he wants to see. Javek said, "Tell, I'm sorry. Do you play games?" Yes, I do play a lot of games. Usually, not as much recently. I play primarily games on my PlayStation 5, and I'm a huge fan primarily of Sony's first-party games. So something like God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us. Those are kind of my favorite games. And okay, good. We already have somebody joining us who agrees with us with us. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to use the royal we here, but that the name shouldn't be changed. And part of that, however, is you have to understand the reason why it's being rebranded as X is because it's part of that broader vision that I outlined right now, where he basically wants it to be WeChat. And the reason why that's bad is because we don't want WeChat. We don't want more competition to already the fragmented like chat services we have, and the podcasts app and payment services. It's like, I am all for competition, but Musk clearly hasn't shown that he isn't capable of delivering competition. And even what he does with like the rebranding is like fundamentally silly too. So what has he done? Well, for one, he's announced it over a tweet, and there was like an interim X logo. It's a user submitted logo that apparently won. I still haven't seen like a 100% clarification, but it seems to be that some guy offered it for free. So once again, Musk is basically socializing wins for himself while giving away any kind of losses. Yeah, of course. If Musk wanted to make a legitimate new platform, it should be said. That's why I don't know how long you've been here, Javek Seitzel. Maybe let me know in the chat how I should pronounce your name. Is if he wanted to create a new service, kind of like the Boring Company, right? I don't care about the Boring Company. I think it's shit. But because it's not connected to Twitter or Tesla or SpaceX, I don't have to care about it. It's a complete flop by most accounts, and I don't have to care about it. And if you wanted to create a new service, that's fine by me. Call it X, launch it as a separate app, create a new user experience. But there are things that he has done to Twitter that suggest that he wouldn't even have the logistical resources to launch something new unless he would now start basically building it from the ground. So yeah, basically there was a bounty on the best X logo. There was okay, so that's how it was launched. Okay, so it seems to be pretty official now. X is here. So it should be said that Musk isn't the Twitter CEO anymore, though he pretty much still runs it however he wants. It's Linda Yaccarino, who agrees with him on a lot of the issues that I've outlined. And it should be said that people like me have said that, but then again, Marquez, who has infinitely more followers than I do, said, I'm still gonna call it Twitter, and Musk said not for long. And I think that similar to how Facebook rebranded itself into Meta, I do believe that the vast majority of people will still keep calling it Twitter. What is my opinion on his AI robot that can do tasks for you? I haven't seen that robot still do tasks for me. It's, for one, AI is a big term, right? I'm not denying that Musk is going into robotics, but the kind of AI he's talking about would be very, very complicated in terms of basically if the robot isn't pre-programmed, right? That's how we talk about Boston Dynamics. The biggest criticism against them is that what we see from them is pre-programmed, even though it might require some machine learning beforehand. What the robots are shown doing in the videos is something that they have learned before. What we want to see from Musk's robots or any kind of actual AI robots is robots that have a unique understanding of the surroundings with LiDAR sensors, advanced cameras, and then they have object recognition, and then they have advanced algorithms that make them understand how they should grab something so they hold it well without breaking. They need to understand what material maybe something is made out of, because if they show us robots screwing its screws with a machine tool for cars, well, guess what? Those tasks have been automated for years. You don't need advanced AI. And when he says that those are AI robots doing that, that's a lie. Because you don't need AI for that. You don't even need humanoid robots for that. And while I do believe that we will see some improvements from that, I don't believe that it will be fast enough to be relevant for a long time. I believe it will be slow enough that basically if there is a relevant market for this, some other companies will also deliver very relevant competition. Imagine if Google tomorrow got a ton of tech from Boston Dynamics, or I'm not quite sure how Boston Dynamics is internally structured, who mostly finances them, but you could imagine Microsoft working with them or Google working with them, and there are other robotics companies than just Boston Dynamics. That's just the biggest example that I can give. And they can, if it's actually relevant for any kind of industry to have humanoid robots, they will invest in that. However, you shouldn't forget how cheap labor is in many parts of the world. And having a robot that might have super complicated servicing requirements, where you would still need to have basically a human overseeing it, I don't know how relevant that will be. Eventually, yes, I believe that in 100 years, a ton of jobs or a ton of tasks at least will be done through robots like this. Do I believe that Musk will be the one to push it forward? I don't know. You're saying with the new internet and new Snapdragon chips, it could be very useful when you ask it to do. Again, Snapdragon chips are nice, but I'm not talking even like about the raw compute capabilities of AI. AI thus far is extremely volatile. I'm not disregarding your point. As I have said, this is the last basically piece of the puzzle that I didn't mention about like Elon's companies, is that I believe that if he wants to cover if he wants to try it out, I have never said anything against it, except for whenever they have shown it, it looked disappointing. And saying, oh, they now have like better like Snapdragon chips with like AI accelerators, I have no idea what the compute requirements will be. What I am saying though is, realistically, we don't actually have the algorithms right now to handle it. And given how long FSD is taking, even just in the US, I'm not even talking about having some kind of program worldwide or anything, I'm inclined to believe that it will take so long that my opinion from today basically doesn't matter. So again, it's a complicated thing where I'm not against the core technology, I'm not against the engineers doing work, but I'm also actually against a lot of the internal structure that Musk has imposed. Like those engineers have to like shift their work between Tesla FSD and this, and basically like spreading everyone thin so that no individual thing can succeed currently, at least. And then obviously all his promises of FSDs launching this year is also what feeds into my skepticism for every kind of new service that he wants to launch. So that's basically my contribution to this. So this is what is currently happening and what I'm hating on, and I'm glad that people are agreeing, not just because it looks stupid, but because once you start breaking it down in what it means, it is actually stupid. So let us actually go back to a timeline of his Twitter acquisition. I will try to make it quick because I will lose my voice eventually, and I will probably lose the battery on my iPad. I should have charged it prior. Doesn't matter. So he buys Twitter, right, for $44 billion. Well, he was forced to buy Twitter, and right now he's trying to get away from paying the lawyers that made him pay for Twitter, because those lawyers were originally, of course, employed by Twitter, and now he owns Twitter. So that was a complete shit show. Access to short, yes, even that's also true. It's like I've seen like somebody suggest on Twitter that, for example, should we rebrand like Washington Post into W and then just say, oh, now take the W or something like that, and people are like, well, that doesn't actually sound so bad, right? Right, because at least the first letter kind of matters, and matches the original branding. With Twitter going to X makes no sense. If he actually had launched a service called X that had like financial services or something like that, or like SpaceX, the X there fits sort of because it's like space exploration. But like with Twitter, X is too short and it makes no sense. That's what makes the branding really, really terrible. So then, of course, once he bought it, once he was forced to buy it by a Delaware court, he went to revamping Twitter's verification system. So Twitter Blue, which was like a way to get more perks from Twitter, became a way of being verified on Twitter, and it originally was $4.99. It wasn't a very successful thing before Musk. It became successful the way it looks on Twitter, because he made it that way, the Twitter services blue check marks on top, but overall it's an objective flop. It doesn't bring in enough money, it doesn't compensate for the loss of advertisers or anything else like that. So it was $4.99, now it's $8, it's $11 if you want to go through the App Store. It's a shit show. And then he began laying off people. people. Now, why does that matter? A lot of people who don't know any better are coming out and saying, well, Twitter is still functioning, right? So maybe there were too many people working there. And I agree that there was an amount of people that probably was too much for the original vision of Twitter. However, once he started laying off Twitter, Twitter became less stable. The algorithm became, and is still until this day, complete garbage. The apps are not really updated as much as they should, right? He promised that Android would become as fast as iOS. I have not heard that actually had happened. The macOS app hasn't been updated for a while, which makes it even a little better because of some of the new garbage in the system. But we have had like numerous problems with the servers currently. We have had a thing where Twitter basically doxed itself and had to like turn down engagement to not break down. Anybody who's like saying that all those layoffs were relevant. Hello, Kollega also joined us. I'm very happy. You are a very, very loyal viewer from the early days. It's good morning for you. It's very late evening for me. It's 9:40 p.m. So it's actually an interesting way that we meet here. And you did calm me down a little. Thank God I didn't want you to witness my heart attack that early in the morning. But I'm glad to have you here. So we are talking about like a more like a bigger timeline regarding like Elon Musk's acquisition. I've already tried laying out a lot of issues that we have seen with the rebranding by itself, and now we're getting into a lot of juicy stuff that predates this and shows that this rebranding isn't just stupid by its own. It feeds into a whole garbage bin of stupid that has already been filled to the brim and is now exploding basically upon us. So the layoffs have resulted in a worse service. You could maybe say that like the first layoff wave was okay, maybe, but then there were other people like continued to be let go, and the service kept getting worse. And then there were even like in the beginning, we basically had like people being told to return, that basically, oh, we changed our mind, we are not gonna breaking up with you. So then we have all the restructuring of Twitter Blue, which caused all the verification chaos that I've already outlined, which like it basically stopped making verification in any way meaningful for the platform. It became really, really bad for any kind of actual, like, I don't want to reuse the word verification, but actually like just checking if the people you are talking to are the people you are talking to, especially in the wave of protest where people were basically saying that I wouldn't subscribe even if I have all the money in the world. So, Kollega, you're also saying you don't like what is happening with Twitter, and it's sad what is happening to such a popular social media. Okay, so JavaXL, you're saying it would be great if I did an iOS 17 review. I am waiting for one more beta before I do another iOS 17 breakdown. This Wednesday, I am doing a big stream with Samsung's latest event. Basically, the launching of the Galaxy Fold 5 and the Galaxy Flip 5. So I assume that we will be getting a new beta tomorrow. So sometime either late this week or early next week, this is when I'm gonna be doing more coverage of iOS 17 and also watchOS 10. I actually really like watchOS 10. I've been using it on my Series 4 for a while, and yeah, so I'm really glad to have the interest here. JavaXL, you have to go. I completely understand. It's always difficult to match with timing. Very glad to have had you here. Again, we are a small channel. We appreciate everybody who joins in. So have a nice day or have a nice night, whatever time of day it is for you. And thank you very much. I'll hopefully see you in the next stream. So, oh yeah, I'm glad you're looking forward to more videos. Yeah, I will be getting back to more Apple stuff and more like Android comparative stuff. So then we've had like a multicolored verification system, which I believe like lasted for what, like, I don't know, like, is it still technically going on? They've restructured it again and again with what colors they were using. Then they were using like light and dark gray, and it was all garbage basically. Okay, so then they increased the prices because of the App Store fees, which again will only make it worse because people will not subscribe if they don't have the option to do it through the app. You are not Netflix, you're not Spotify, you don't have the marketing power for that. Oh, and then we had the account suspension spree, including prominent journalists. I will leave that up to you. I will get super angry if I actually cover that in detail. But like, Kollega, you just mentioned that it's sad what is happening to a popular social media site. I would argue that this is way worse. But this is what led to Twitter becoming X. It's what why I'm saying why X is dead on arrival. I'm not saying that the Twitter component of X is dead on arrival. I am saying that every other component that Musk is trying to basically draft onto the corpse of Twitter, on that little pretty blue bird, which, by the way, the memes are hilarious. Like, some are for like Naruto's like blue bird intro that now have like the Twitter logo there. That's actually really funny. So yes, I would say that when Musk was like going against like the guy who was looking for his private jet, and then there were other journalists who were covering it, and then he like blocked those journalists too, and I don't mean block, he suspended their accounts, and then he went back on that. So it was all a shit show throughout this. There were some nice changes that always should have happened. I don't think that it took Musk's genius to get to that, but like, you can see how many people view your tweets, which the UI for that is actually quite bad, and it's not really, it doesn't update as quickly as it should. Maybe it's different for like Twitter Blue users, but then there's like Twitter Blue for businesses, which again, I understand why businesses would buy it, but who cares. Twitter now displays stocks and cryptocurrency prices. Oh yeah, we've had like Twitter also quickly be rebranded into like the Doge dog or something, because Musk's love crypto when it makes him money, and then he hates it when it loses him money. Then he started laying off more people, and this is when I would wager when the service actually turned bad, when the algorithm became completely useless. I stopped using like the home or for you section, whatever it's called now. So that's complete garbage. So what else? Of course, Twitter Blue users could now upload 60-minute videos. Ironically, that resulted in people starting to upload like full-on feature movies in like basically 2 or 3 tweets. It's hilarious basically, and even like it was like 1080p. Like the macro blocking was so bad. I have no idea what compression they're using here. So this was the worst 1080p that I have seen in like 10 years. There's like what? Oh, lifts the political ad ban to bolster revenue. Of course, they are now expecting everything like from the presidential election to we've had like the midterms. So that's why that happened again, which also devalues further the actual experience for a little more money. Oh god, yeah, so everything else is like, it's just Twitter makes the algorithm for you timeline the default. Somehow they made the algorithm behind it way worse. So yeah, there's not much good happening here. And I cannot say enough how I hate most of the changes here. So again, there's small like decent stuff like a bookmark feature. Yeah, that's what they're focused on, like bringing Twitter Blue to more countries, which also was like an extremely confusing experience. Why couldn't you launch like Twitter Blue in like Germany and Italy and Portugal and Spain right away? Like those markets are really relevant and they have like highly engaged users, and then you killed a lot of the engagement for a lot of people because now they had to compete with Twitter Blue without being able to buy Twitter Blue. So then, oh yeah, then there were like 4,000 character tweets, because why introduce like 500 character tweets for everyone if you can let like Twitter Blue users post entire essays, which look like garbage. The UI for that for mobile, just the way you have to expand it, and then it takes up so much. It's completely terrible. Yeah, so then they were going to kill legacy blue check marks, and then we basically get to. Oh yeah, that was also like NPR was like backed like as like a state-backed media label, which is not what state-backed means, because if that's how Musk wants to like define state-backed, then you should like also label Tesla a state-backed company. By the way, so then Twitter Blue subscribers will be showing half ads, not even like completely ad free. So you know you are being taken for a ride here. A bunch of problems with like the privacy settings. Then the check marks were like completely a complete mess. I still have no idea what the final solution basically was. I assume it was genocide on all relevant check marks, only to be replaced by garbage. Yeah, so. And then they went back on half of the things that I'm also outlining. So if you know how completely stupid all of those things are, ask them. They agree. Oh god. And then of course somewhat recently we've had like limits on how much you could actually like go through Twitter, how much you could either tweet or how many tweets you could see. Again, that was mentioned that in the beginning. That was when basically Twitter doxed themselves. Yes, so it's a complete and utter shit show. And they wanted to sue Meta over the Threads app, and then they started sharing ads again, which I agree with. But the way they've rolled it out, I've talked about it in the beginning. I highly encourage people to watch the entire video, because it will get really, really messy, and I will have to wrap up soon. But let us just get back to here, right? And the entire point here is, why am I doing this? It's not because if Musk were to launch a service that tried all of those things, I would be fine with that. I don't care about Musk's political beliefs in the sense that like I'm not like actively boycotting him or anything. I wanted to leave Twitter. I've made a bunch of good friends through Twitter. I've actually moderated my usage a lot, so I'm not I'm not addicted to it in any way anymore, so I can moderate Twitter for myself by also blocking a ton of accounts, including Musk. But the service itself is worse than, in my opinion, it has been probably since like 10 years ago or something like that. The rebranding makes no sense, and it's a symptom of a larger disease of basically stupidity that I don't see in other companies. I don't like Meta. Meta, in my opinion, is a somewhat evil corporation, and I don't want to use that word lightly. But like the way they focus on ads and their algorithm encourages extreme thoughts there, that's bad to me. But Twitter isn't much better, and everything they're doing now is basically their way of becoming more like Facebook or Meta, and not in any way of actually fixing what was already bad. And now they are halfway fixing what they are breaking, but then still adding more broken stuff. And I don't want that. I like Twitter not for anything that Musk has done. Like, yeah, sure, I like maybe some individual things like bookmarks or anything like that. But fundamentally, under him, the service got worse. My iPad battery just ran out. My voice is running low. I got very ranty here. And to anybody who's still here, I cannot check anymore. My point is that I want all companies to hold themselves to a somewhat high standard. Yes, I understand every company wants to make money. Yes, I understand every company in like late stage capitalism engages to a degree in exploitation of workers and consumers. However, to me, Twitter has become so bad. And now with this, like, I'm staying on Twitter for the interaction with the people that I know and for managing like some social media presence for my YouTube channel. You bet your ass that I'm not doing any relevant things on Twitter. Basically, any like I'm not refraining mostly from even like political stuff, because then you get like mostly blue check marks because everybody else is unimportant. Because apparently, and this is the last point, like Musk was gonna buy Twitter for free speech, and to him free speech became paid speech. Like the Twitter blue accounts are the ones that are being pushed forward. That's, by the way, why insanely popular people like Marquez on Twitter somehow get like less engagement for their tweets for the rebranding than some ultra non-relevant guy with like 100,000 followers. Sure, I would be happy for 100,000 followers, but that's not really how you compete against the big guys. But because basically every sycophant that is his follower gets like his tweet front and center, also because he's Twitter blue, that's how Musk creates the attention that he likes. He gets a lot of the love from his Twitter blue guys, then he shits on some of the people who disagree with, and then he has like a lot of sycophants joining in. It's also what got Tesla to like 800 to 900 billion dollars of market valuation. This company has like a PE ratio of 70 to 80 right now. It was around 100 before the recent stock drop. Like, you have to imagine that this is not like the media reaction to Musk is similar to the media reaction to Trump. And if originally, like, yes, Trump was hated by a lot of the media right up front for what he was saying, but they were loving the engagement that he was creating. Musk actually got the positive impression from the media for being like a modern guy, a tech guy, an EV guy, but then he used all of that for bad stuff, basically. And Twitter is now worse than it has been. Like, technologically, it's worse than it's probably been like for 10 years, when I assume Twitter was still struggling with some of the tech stuff. Content wise, it's worse than it has ever been. There's absolutely no question about it. When Twitter was smaller, a lot of the interactions were much more positive from everything that I have heard. It also lines up with my longer experience with something like YouTube, which YouTube also used to be better in terms of content than it is now. So I hate what is happening with Twitter, and I have outlined how I believe that Musk is to blame for basically everything here. And some will say, well, Twitter was losing money. This is him getting to profitability. Sure it is. That's why half the advertisers left. That's why the blue check marks are so unpopular, that their contribution to overall revenue is basically non-existent. This is why his monetization efforts right now are like super limited, and you still don't know which money pool he's actually accessing. So it's less like sharing the actual ad revenue of that ads make specifically to you. It's more like you getting a share from a money pile that Elon designated for monetization, and if that money pile were to run out, basically it would become more stretched and thin and thinner. So the hope would be, oh, Twitter keeps growing, but Twitter isn't really growing in terms of revenue because of all that shit. That's it. So anybody who's trying to go ultra capitalist, which I can understand, it's a company, right? Musk isn't contributing to the financial success of Twitter either. He would have been just well off just laying off like 20 to 30% of employees, trying to slim down the company, working with companies in terms of ads like how do you like ads to be surfaced so that they are more relevant to people. He should have created a better, like, either you could have made it like polling, basically, like what are you interested in, and those are the ads you see. Or it's completely algorithm based, but then you need a better algorithm than what you currently have. And those are simple things, and some would say, oh, do you know that better than Musk? Well, guess what, who knows it better? It's YouTube and Facebook, and that's pretty much exactly what they're doing and how they got to their success. Yes, Facebook might not personally ask you, well, they do ask you for your interest when you sign up, but Facebook also primarily has an amazing algorithm to organize basically every waking minute of you onto a server. And sure, while I definitely don't want to see that from Twitter, they definitely aren't contributing anything that I would be saying, oh, I excuse like a worse algorithm. I'm sorry, no. I still see way too many ads. The ads are completely worthless to me. And then the rest of the content that I see is even less relevant somehow half the time. And even if it's like somewhat interesting because it's like political, it comes from the completely wrong side, which to me is like, okay, I'm fine. Like, I engage with people who are like right wing. In fact, some of my best friends are somewhat right wing, so I don't have a problem with holding discussions. But then I clearly see, oh, there are basically like no alternatives here, right? It's either go right or go home. And then everything else, like the audio stuff for like Twitter Spaces, is a bust. The UI for most of the things completely sucks. And now he wants to cram in potentially like financing stuff into the service so that the X rebranding makes some kind of sense. No. I'm sorry, guys, that's not the way to do it. Anybody who believes that's the way to do it, go suck off Musk through Twitter Blue. I hope that anybody who watches this does not get too aggro, or if you do, you're free to unsubscribe, free to unfollow, free to share to people who also might hate this so that they add to my engagement. This is probably the most aggro video you will see from me in a while, unless God knows what happens. The world is crazy enough, we never know. But I wish to all of you who are level-headed, who are somewhat intellectual in their approach to things, not that it means that you have to be like an academic, but you try to understand why things are happening. You try to understand why not everything that a billionaire says is automatically good, because you were conditioned that anybody with more money than you is automatically better than you. If you understand those things, that logical breakdowns are important, that it's important to listen to people who actually engage in honest intellectual conversations and not just blindly listen to basically like your lordship who is like telling peasants that you don't understand anything about this here anyway. I only overpaid like 2x for this platform because lawyers forced me. Now I have to pay those lawyers $100 million. I've fired 70% of the people here, so your service got worse. I reinvited some of the most extreme people here, hoping that they would pay me with Twitter Blue, but then Twitter Blue also still doesn't make me profit. If you want to tell me that I understand less than Musk about Twitter, it's your opinion, man. It's the wrong one, because I think there are a lot more people who agree with me here than disagree, and I think that that's fundamentally the discussion that we can have. We can have it here. Again, my iPad is empty, so I don't actually know if somebody left more comments. I think we can have the discussion on Twitter, not X. We are not going to call it X. And of course, if you are still free to hate, but for all of you, you get my love for joining me. This was a long-winded live stream, but I had a lot of energy. Hopefully you enjoyed that. As I mentioned before, on Samsung, there's the Wednesday. On Wednesday, there will be my stream on the latest Samsung event, or whenever the event is happening in your region. Because it's happening like at such a specific time, there are actually like time zones when it's like a different day. So just look up when the Samsung stream is, and you will know when my stream is, and I will also let you know both on Twitter by basically like pre-launching the stream, and on YouTube by pre-launching the stream, and on Twitter by sharing the link and pinning it to the top. So thank you, Twitter, for this thing at least still working. And to all of you, thank you for joining me. Hopefully, also thank you for joining me up front. Thanking you for joining me on Wednesday. Hopefully, this is Mark Tech, losing all energy, saying thank you, and seeing you guys next time.